Thank you, James. All right, is the mic on? We good? Yes? Okay. We have time for questions. If you have a question, we have mics going around the room. They have flashing red lights. Please try to keep them short if we get everyone in. Although, if you have a question about Twitter, it is no longer limited to 140 characters. So questions from the audience while we're looking for one. I guess I'll just start. So, yes, it is not on. Right. There we go. For those of you online, I made a 140-character joke. Okay. Read about somebody here tweeted about it. Just read. So many. Do we have a question? Yes, in the back.
Hi, my name is Vitor. I'm sociologist at Brazilian Early Warning Center for Disasters, and we are developing a pilot project about citizen science in high schools. And my question is, how can we promote long-term participation and dialogues using citizen science approach?
Can you say more about what your citizen science approach is?
Yes, it's when you involve citizens to measure data and share this data for scientific purpose.
So you want to know how we can use social media to encourage that? Is that your question?
Yeah, it's a question.
Okay. I just wanted to understand, yeah. I don't know a lot about citizen science. There's a great exhibit on it at the Natural History Museum in San Diego right now. So I haven't actually worked with citizen scientists, so you probably know more about this than me. I think that the main message from a lot of the studies of social media is that when you want to get people to do something, you want to create organic messages. You want not to be a top-down approach, but you want to stimulate people to create their own messages, which then spread via their strong connections online. So ideally, you're already working with some of these citizen scientists. You should get them to talk about what they're doing online. And specifically, the more they can do that with people that they have a face-to-face relationship with, our research suggests that that's actually going to be what motivates other people then to become more involved in the citizen science program.
You know, if you think about it more generally, too, if what we want to do is create a learning outcome, learning comes from co-production. Like if you and I are in a car and we hear a song and we like the song and then we turn the radio off and we can still hear it, that's because we were so motivated and inspired by the song that we created our own version and can play it after the song turns off. And with science, with citizen science, what we have the opportunity to do is inspire people so much with the tactile experience of discovery that when we leave the room, they can still hum the tune, right? They were so inspired by it that they leave with it. And those types of learning experiences, I think, can be really very effective. There's a question in the front. Oh, sorry, and there's one right there. Hello, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for your comments. I want to ask a question about social media as it could be, not just as it is. We're taking it as a given that the platforms are there and how do we use them, but we all know that it doesn't work very well. The comments section is a cesspool. It rewards trolls. Can you envision any kind of we're at the beginning of social media. It will iterate and evolve, and we should have a hand in what it will become. Do you have any thoughts on what social media could become to realize its potential to really inform and educate and create constructive dialogue?
I was really encouraged to see that the scientists' tweets were more informative, and that more informative tweets do better. So maybe we're not there yet, but maybe this suggests that if we just keep hammering away at this, that scientists will build more of a following. They're latecomers to social media because they're busy. They've been doing other things, but now a lot of them have really adopted it. And so it's kind of hard to extrapolate from now for what's going to happen 5 years from now. But I think that if you believe like what's published right now, the fact that we are growing and the fact that we do have these kinds of behaviors online now suggests to me that we're going to be playing more of a role. Now, whether or not that changes people's minds, whether or not that changes policy, whether or not that encourages more people to become citizen scientists to go into science, I'm not sure. And I would like to do scientific studies of that process to see to what extent different messages are influencing people to to trust science, to make scientific decisions. That's something that we definitely need to learn. But I feel optimistic given the comparisons that we're just now starting to make.
Just, on that point, it's easy to see the negative side of social media, but there's also this amazing positive side. Whenever we have an extreme weather event or a famine or things like that, you have young children who are able to go and make a Kickstarter page or organize people on Twitter to help others in ways that were never possible. As James was saying, we're late to the game, but let's just not look at the dark side of social media. There's amazing things we can do to organize people for great causes. Yes, to the back.
Okay, so given that so much of the tweets in 2016 were done by trolls, robotic, algorithmic, right? How much are you measuring propaganda or the influence of propaganda? How worried are you that what the outcome of your research could be used for furthering propaganda, for making it more successful? And then, how much does that point to the real need to address the ecosystem of democracy in order to make science communication more effective?
These are frustrating times. And I have to admit to getting into social media studies with quite a bit of naivete. I started working with Facebook when there were 50 people there. And it's a much different organization now. And I was warned by people like Zeynep Tufekci that, corporations are going to get involved with this, and it's going to become a different thing. And that seems to be what has happened. I am heartened by the fact that the social media companies seem to be responsive now politically in the way that they weren't. I think they understand that if they're seen to be favoring one party or another, or seen to be disseminating negative things like fake news, that people will stop using their services. So hopefully the profit motive works in the right direction there. But I say hopefully because now you're not just relying on the goodwill of a bunch of idealists in Silicon Valley. You're relying on dollars. It's like, I'm going to lose users if I don't fix this problem. So to what extent that's actually going to help these platforms to be able to weed out trolls, to be able to label news so that we can identify what's fake and what's not is an open question. But they do seem to be trying to fix the problem the way they weren't before people raised these issues.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from Twitter. Our friend Tim Campbell asks, what metrics can potentially be used to measure actual influence?
So if quantity drives...
That's the rest of this question. I was like, I edited it.
That's okay. So we're still looking at this, right? And you have this huge literature that just counted up the number of followers, the number of tweets, the number of retweets, and things like that, without a lot of attention paid to what impact it has in the real world. A big exception to this is in marketing. Like, they don't want to know if you clicked on something. They want to know if you actually bought something. And so I suspect that we might learn a lot from companies that are trying to figure out to what extent one person saying something on Twitter gets people to buy more stuff. And some of that work is being done not in the public space. Hopefully, more will be done in the public space. But I think it's there we're going to be able to sort out which of these measures, is it network measures, is it quality measures, is it quantity measures, that actually do the best job of predicting changes in people's real world behavior.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question from the audience, wherever the red light's going.
There we go. I wonder if you could talk for a minute, James, about the mistargeting problem. Social media responses, we know, are a very low frequency event. So one of the best ways to get responses in social media is to say, I'm a member of the tribe, aren't you too? Right, essentially. Right? And so we see a lot of discourse, even within the scientific community, it's about this kind of in-group affirmation. And I think that would be a way that people could generate more responses, but I'm not sure it's necessarily the most constructive form of engagement. So I wonder if you could talk a little more about this kind of targeting problem in thinking about what kind of responses people get when they do engage.
So this is a lovely question. This is exactly where the research on social media influence needs to go. You're talking about the quality of the tweet, right? So one tweet is about in-group, out-group. Another tweet is about, say, an objective piece of information that doesn't have to do with in-group, out-group tribalism. If you figure out a machine learning way to look at those two different kinds of tweets and then see what kind of impact they have, I think you're right. I think you're going to see an increase in online engagement as a consequence of this in-group, out-group thing. But what I'm hoping is that that result will also show that if you don't just rely on that, that you rely on information, that there's just longer-term engagement that happens. I don't know whether that's true. As again, I've always been a little bit naive about these things. I'm going to totally admit that. But my hope is that by looking at quality, we'll then maybe be able to design systems to encourage one type of tweet versus another.
So James Fowler has a website. It has all your research that's dynamic, inspirational, and shows all the ways that we affect one another. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your questions.